Hello, everybody. I just wanted to say thank you to JT and the Poco Moonshine fam. Man, it was a pleasure. I went on the podcast yesterday chatting with Carnivores. Had a great time talking about all things carnivore. And I wanted to talk today about some stuff. The interview was titled Limitless Energy. And you know what? I think I'm going to go into I'm going to throw some logic bombs down, and maybe give some people that are starting out some context about energy, what are calories, and actually how we perceive energy might be, the mainstream idea may be innately flawed. Now, once again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but I am questioning everything they've ever said, and they say a lot of crazy stuff. And maybe this can give you a little bit more insight into actually what energy is and how our bodies work. This is Anthony Stewart. This is Food for Thought. We are questioning everything they've ever said. Today, we're going to talk about energy, limitless energy. And when that term is used with me, what I find limitless energy is, we're going to have to define this a little bit. It is not fitness. It is not cardiovascular health. It is not anything except for the ability to be functional. And when I say that, I mean, for an example, at work, I have rock solid energy. So not too high, not too low. I don't have any crashes. I don't need food to give me energy when I have it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Now, why I can run circles around people half my age, and it's not necessarily running. It's more about the steady straight line that I have. And, a lot of it to do with, the frequency and the vibration of the universe and how to unlock this stuff that's there within you and within the universe. So we're going to talk today. First, we got to realize what energy is. And I'm reading this book called the Biogeometry Signatures by Dr. Ibrahim Karim. It's all about sacred geometry and the actual how shapes dictate but that's kind of one thing. But I wanted to just read you something out of this, and then we can go on to the next thing. So to understand the energy of shape, we must first understand what energy really is. The famous physicist Richard Feynman once said that we use all sorts of energy in our advanced age of technology, but nobody really knows what energy is. These are strong words that speak a truth that is seldom acknowledged by mainstream scientists. The scientific definition of energy is the ability to produce an effect, work, action. Effect is a product of energy, and the change caused by the effect on the recipient is perceived as new information. In simplified manner, we can refer to energy as the effect or information. They can be used synonymously. Energy transforms itself from one form to another. We perceive it through its manifestations such as electricity, magnetism, heat, and gravity, without really knowing the essence of what is manifesting in all those forms. The definition says that it is only perceived through its effects. We can measure many of those effects and quantify them with our scientific instruments. In mainstream science, however, the false assumption that we should only acknowledge energy that we can quantify through measurement with a scientific device prevails. This erroneous worldview is creating a wide gap between mainstream science and holistic natural practices. The definition of energy is actually very simple to understand, as the effect on something has on something else. So energy is synonymous with effect. Once we use the term effect instead of energy, we are handed a key that opens new horizons of understanding. So what generally goes on today is we talk about energy and calories. And then this for all the carnivores out there that kind of question that. Do I have to count calories? What are calories? And I'm going to try and keep this as simple as possible and throw some logic here. Calories, and this is thanks to Bart K. And I urge you, if you're concerned about calories in, calories out, or all that stuff, it's kind of true, but it's kind of false information. Now, if you're an athlete or you need to quantify this stuff for a desired goal, it might be a good idea to count calories, but calories are not what we think they are. We go into places, we look up, and on the menus, they have the calories and calories. They're there to say, in my opinion, they're there to say that it's okay to eat this, but just not that much. If you overdo it, you're gonna be fat. So that would mean all calories are created equal, which I can prove to you they're not. So try and live off Coca-Cola. X amount of calories, it doesn't, there's so many different variables. So what I urge people to do is stop worrying about what they say about calories and start understanding that energy and potential energy is what matters, and how your body metabolizes energy and uses energy from what the nutrition you give your body. So instead of thinking about calories, think about energy as we convert what we eat into energy. So it is a thing. And why do we hold body fat? Well, if you look at what body fat is, technically it's potential energy. So maybe the signals that we send our body from all the garbage that we eat, it's an excess in potential energy. And because we're not using it right away, we have these physiological changes that convert excess energy into potential energy. So when we need to stimulate our bodies to use that potential energy, instead of worrying about fat and carbs, we just look at all things equal. Carbs are immediate energy. Anything in excess, your body has to deal with it. It will store it. So why would it be storing? Like there's lots of theories out there about, if you look at a bear that needs to eat a lot of energy to store it for hibernation, it's a little different than somebody who's using it. So in my, honest opinion, I think the world is creating a state of possible hibernation, but never sleeping, if that makes any sense. So we are overdoing the energy because we're giving ourselves the excuse that it's okay to eat as long as I watch my calories. I'll lose weight, and that's where the truth comes in. You have to realize that it's not about that. And the law of thermodynamics does not really apply to humans. And I urge anybody watch Bart Kay and his inspiration, or his logic behind what calories are. Now we have to start with what a calorie is. Now we are not tanks of water. So how they measure calories is they put food substance or material, matter, into a bomb calorimeter. And what that is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a tank of water, and they basically nuke it with electricity, blow it up, and watch the change in degree of what happens. And they quantify that with the calorie. So really, calories are heat, which we do not survive on heat. So our metabolic process is not a closed system. There's a lot of things that happen, and the long and short of it is how we can efficiently use our energy and tap into potential energy. So what I do, when we're going on this carnivore diet, while we see these things happen, it has a lot to do with ketosis. It has a lot to use to being able to tap into your body fat storage, potential energy. So limitless energy would technically mean that you're always steady, always stable, using your energy for the fuel that you need. If you give it too much, you're going to put on potential energy. If you can tap into it more than you're putting in, theoretically, you will drop body fat. Now, I think with carnivores, like we just saw, check out JT's success. He's 60 days in, and now, and I appreciate you, brother, but, we all worry about weight. It's not about weight. It's about being able to tap into your potential energy, and I can assure you it will come. If fat makes you fat, I'm a freak, because I eat a lot of fat, and I'm shedding body fat, and it's been a steady line for 2.5 years. How do I get a six pack? How do I, get buff? If you get healthy, the body fat percentage will naturally drop. Why? Because your body is using what it needs, and when it needs it, it taps into what you have. So we're actually tricking our bodies to use potential energy stored as fat. So that's where the trick comes in. So when we're doing a carnivore diet and we're using we're using fat for energy, our bodies are smart, and we don't give them enough credit. So when you're tracking calories, it's really it's a little tricky because it doesn't mean it. Now, we look at calories as 4 calories per gram of carbs, 9 calories per gram of body fat, or for grams of 9 calories to a gram of fat and 4 calories to a gram of protein. Now, yes, it's true. Our bodies will use carbohydrates first. I think it's a myth that they say, well, it's argumentative, but is glucose our primary fuel source? Also tricky. But when you have an excess of glucose in your bloodstream, you must get the danger away. So your body, it's a defense mechanism that it converts the excess glucose into fat. It creates triglycerides, stores it as fat. First in your organs, then in your subcutaneous, that's kind of the way it works. If protein was used for energy, which it can be converted, but this is something called gluconeogenesis that happens in your liver, and we're not going to complicate things right now. We're just looking at energy. So the idea, the sweet spot, the magic, especially on a carnivore diet, when you're giving your body human food, you will not eat excess. And if you do need to eat excess, that's when the intuition takes over. And I'll give you an example. How many beers, how many Coca-Colas can you drink? Probably you'll never have an off button. You're always going to be able to have that another one. How much popcorn how many chips can you eat? What it's doing is it's giving your body a false signal. There is no off switch. So that's the trick. If you drink water, try it. Don't try it, but just theoretically. If you keep drinking water, as much water as you can possibly drink, your body will automatically, naturally have an off signal. This is nature. Look at animals in the wild. Look at like any animal. They don't drink anything else but usually water. And they know how much to drink, and they know when it's that intuition side. So if you try to drink as much water as you can, your body will naturally send an I don't need any more signal. Now, it's kind of tricky with minerals and like why spring water is probably better than it is better than distilled water because of the mineral side of things. But what I'm saying is the natural signaling. Now, when you're eating proper human food, your body will send I've had enough signal. And that's where Dr. Anthony Chaffee really, really has a great idea. And it's like you eat enough meat till it stops tasting good, and it will happen. So that's where you go. You can eat a 5-pound roast, and eventually what will happen is your body will just say, hey, I've had enough. And I think that's when we tap into the natural, sensory, human instinct where it tells us when it's natural for us to be consuming, your body will say stop, or it will say keep going. And I think that's the confusion where the calories come in. And for people that are just starting out, I used to track calories. I used to worry about this stuff, but now I'm more into intuition and using my natural signals to say I've had enough. And I say this because, I do have rock solid energy almost every day. I don't worry about, because I get enough fat, which also fat has so many other benefits than just, energy. We have fat-soluble vitamins. We have essential fatty acids. There's so many things. The cholesterol is a big deal. So eating, saturated fat from animals, when you eat the flesh and associated fat of animals, it's giving your body all the right natural signals, and it will generally guide you. It takes some work to get there. I'm not going to lie. We've been decades of this false dichotomy of calories in, calories out, and shaming you for eating or being able to reduce your calories. And one thing that I'm a big fan of is this should not be suffering. And what I've noticed from new carnivores out there and people that are just getting over that adjustment phase is that your natural signals take over, and don't underestimate it. So if you have to track calories as a goal or a means, you have to realize that not all calories are created equal. Your body has the potential to store excess energy, and where you're going, tapping into that excess energy, whether you're using like keto, and that's sort of the thing that happens is when your body switches tanks from using glucose first out of danger, taps into the potential energy of stored body fat. That's when you start, and that's why there's context in everybody. Some people, they flip that switch, that gas tank, and if you can imagine, one side is glycolysis, one side is ketosis. When you switch that tank over, it takes a little bit of adjusting, and you might find that you're eating too much, or you think you're eating too much, but it's actually your body saying, no, I need the nutrition. And that's why some people actually gain a little bit of body fat at the start, but most people don't, because it's just your body's equalizing, and a lot of these effects can happen really quickly. So when we're not worried about the calories we're putting in, we're just worried about the nutrition and the foundations of proper human food, the world opens up, and that's how you can start tapping into limitless energy. And when you find your energy is stable all day long, that's kind of what I mean about limitless energy. And it will be different for everybody, but I can assure you, get enough nutrition through meat and fat. And as you start to figure it out, you'll start to rate, because it's all about the protein and fat ratio. And that's where carbohydrates, in context, aren't necessarily a problem if you don't eat them in excess. But most people, because of the way that our lives have been for decades, we're way past that, and it's a good idea to cut it out. Cut out the carbs and watch what happens to your natural switch into ketosis. Now, my mom, I never mentioned keto. I never mentioned any of this. We just changed her diet, and she just was keto naturally because she just was eating that way, using fat for nutrition and energy, not using carbs. So carbs are very subjective. I don't think they're the enemy. It might even be a good idea if you're an athlete to use carbs as a tool. But, for most people, especially when you're getting into the carnivore diet, you have to realize the value of fat. And the protein to fat ratio is going to mean a lot. Now, how our bodies work on a metabolism is going to be different, and you might have to play around with that. It gets a little bit more complicated. I just wanted to throw out there the idea of limitless energy is all to do with eating human food, and we just have to look at animals. All animals know exactly how much to eat. They eat as much as they need to, and then they don't. And if we're the only species alive that is smart enough to make its own food, but stupid enough to eat it, now that has so many subcategories in it. So if you focus on, Ken Berry is right, a proper human diet. Now you can argue till the cows come home, no pun intended, about what is a proper human diet. I believe it is the flesh and the associated fat from animals. And if you tap into this, your natural instincts will take over, guide you to eating intuitively. So fasting is great, but what is it? It's complicated. I don't think you have to try. Some people may, and they may get results. Now, when you're realizing that you're plateauing, what that is our bodies want to be comfortable. It's called homeostasis. Our bodies want to be regular. It doesn't like to be too far here, too far there. When you plateau, a little bit of advice is look at how your body adapts. So you may have to change up the stress, change the timing of your food, change the amounts, maybe eat a little bit more. So if you need some help, anytime, give me a message or an email, or leave a comment below. There's people out there that'll help, but I think the idea is to eat as close to a species-specific human diet as possible, and forget about the old way of, there might be a place for tracking your calories in certain contexts, but for the most part, focus on nutrition. Get healthy. The weight will come off. And what we want to focus on is good weight. Getting heavier through from putting on muscle and bone density and getting your tissues working to a good human level. It doesn't matter about the body fat. The body fat loss is almost a side effect of getting healthy. So get healthy. Body fat will lose. You may have to play around with it. I just wanted to say a few things about why we shouldn't be too concerned about calories, what they are, and keep doing your best. Stay strong.